tied up in traffic
Or waiting for an elevator.
or waiting for an elevator. Welcome to today's June 24th, 2015 Mayo High Nooners Toastmasters meeting. I am your beginning Toastmaster for the day, and Stacy Johnson will fill in for me after a little bit. We have a wonderful lineup today of great speeches. Joe Sharp is speaking to us, Deanna is speaking with us, and Amy Roberts is speaking from a cool storytelling manual when she gets here on something about a squirrel.
Squirrel.
I would like to bring up our grammarian, Chris Nibby, to announce the word of the day and describe his role.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I'm sorry. My loquaciousness just didn't allow me to resist, that inappropriate outburst in the back. I am the grammarian, and my duty as a novice, or as grammarian, my thesaurus just went out the window. Anyway, my job is to introduce the word of the day, and this one came to me earlier in the week and stuck with me. The word is loquacious. It is an adjective, and it means that it describes a person that tends to talk a great deal. A speaker, Toastmasters, is a wonderful venue to find out if a person is naturally loquacious or not. And the sentence I created with this word is, loquacious speakers often see an extended red timer light. I will also try to capture colorful phrases, and I might employ Thomas's quantification of connectors and all the usual things.
Next, I would like to bring up our rough and tumble North Dakotan who just came back from breaking his collarbone in Iowa. He's our timer for the day. Thomas. I don't want to take. There we go.
I also don't want to hurt. My role as the timer is to keep everybody on pace with the meetings, with their speeches, and with each part of our speeches as we go along with table topics, and allow us to get it done on time. To do that, I'm going to hold up the three signs here, as well as turn on the appropriate light. When the speaker has 2 minutes left at the end of their speech, they'll get the green light and the green card. 1 minute left, they'll get the yellow light and yellow card. And when time has expired, they'll get the red light and red card. And if they go beyond a minute, there's a buzzer on multiple. For table topics, the speeches are going to be between 1 to 2 minutes. At 1 minute, green light, green card. 1 minute 30 seconds, yellow light, yellow card. And 2 minutes, red light, red card. And for our speech evaluations, they are 2 to 3 minutes, and at 2 minutes, green card, green light. 2 minutes 30 seconds, yellow card, yellow light, and at 3 minutes, red card, red light. And the buzzer applies to them as well after a minute.
With no further ado, we'll have our first esteemed speaker, Joe Sharp, speaking, and his evaluation will be coming right after he speaks, because he has an engagement after that. Joe. Oh, wait. Yes, I will sit in the second row.
How much time?
5 to 7. Sorry.
The purpose of what I'm talking about today is to encourage each of you to start sketching. You see, we're too loquacious. We use too many words. By using pictures, we can make quick notes that are apparent to everybody, and it's a lot more fun. Now, I know you're going to tell me that you can't draw very well. We're not producing artwork here. We're acting just like kids. Kids used to sketch all the time. I'm just asking you to get back to where it was when you were a kid. So why do it? Well, let's just say how to do it. Could we have a handout? I'm going to give an example of a set of nodes, which you could be making right now. And you'll see that there's a lot of pictures in them. And that's what the whole idea is. Actually, I'd like that one too. If I had an extra chance. I'm sure I have one. Now, this has got a lot of stuff in it, but you'll notice it has a nice big title. That's one of the first things you do when you're trying to produce a sketch. The second thing is, there's a picture of the author there. Mike Cody is the designer of this whole technique, and he put himself in there and gave you his name. Unfortunately, he didn't give you his email, but you could find it. Now look what he's done in the corner here. It says, "My old notes." These are the ones that don't have pictures. He says, "Don't bother reading them. I never did." That's the whole point. Pictures are something you want to look at. But writing, it's just too much to follow. Let's see what he does some tricks. Well, look how he shows the three benefits, what he calls side effects. I call them benefits. Essentially, it focuses your attention. In fact, writing pictures is so much fun you might not want to pay attention to the speaker. Also, it helps your memory. Once you've drawn a picture of something, it's a lot easier to remember. And finally, people will read them. You can hand your notes to other people and they'll read them. Just like this. This is essentially a clue to what sketching is like. Look in the upper corner where it has essentials. He uses a Moleskine pad, which is a high-quality pad that doesn't leak through. And he uses, actually, I have a lot of pens. You can get pens of, oh, yeah, you've got one already. Generally, you want thicker pens than normal. Now, let's see. His advice to you, and this is your hint for today, don't worry about details. Focus on the main point. So that's why he says you'll miss many things. You do it on purpose. You find the main point, draw a picture of it. Be gentle with yourself when you first start doing it. At first, you'll find it's a little bit awkward. But he claims you can learn how to do it pretty quickly. And it says, don't be impatient. Don't judge yourself too quickly. Now, you even might blow it, and that's what he has in the lower corner. He said, I completely blew it one time. That was awful. But I filled it in later, and nobody knew. Obviously, he wants to have fun, too. So how to get started? Well, right now, you could start making some notes. And one suggestion he makes is, put a little square in the corner of your notes, and just draw a sketch right there. You can keep writing the old-fashioned, verbose way, loquacious way. But try doing one sketch, and then try making more sketches until you end up really relying on it. So to recap, sketch notes improve the clarity and understanding of your notes. You've seen a couple ways to start right now. And you can use that visual aid as a clue. One important sketch could very well change your life. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Timer, could we please have 1 minute for evaluations? Today our general evaluator is also going to serve as evaluator number 1. I welcome John Potter up to give an evaluation on Joe's speech. John?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. But I can't do eval 2 and 3 like you did last
I'm
time.
sorry. I'm starting a new trend.
Yes. And thank you, Joe, that you were not very loquacious, but you like to draw pictures. I like pictures. And it's very true what you said, Joe, in your speeches. You tend to remember pictures and they can convey many, many things. You're very forthright. I enjoy your speeches because you lay it out there and just go for it. He says, he wants to start sketching. Yep, that's what you told us, and you told us why. It was fun, and I like the part where you can act like kids, and you don't get graded on your artwork because it conveyed the message or not. And people, you don't talk too much. Loquacious people can get boring after a while if they just keep going and going and talking. I like the handout, the different ideas and that he walked through how Mike Rohde thought and what he did. What I like to see, would have liked to see, Joe, is actually one that you did, and create something. And we wouldn't have judged you; we would have enjoyed it. Then, with improving the clarity and remembering things, I'm going to remember this pictures and the power of the sketching. My son does videography and he does storyboards of each scene. And you look at that storyboard and it tells everybody where they have to be, the camera angles, everything, without saying words. He's just, okay, points, goes, and everybody knows what to do. So, Joe, this was very timely. I'm going to be using this more and more. And thank you very much. And you now have a date with somebody else that you're going to
Yes, please do. Who's going to make one?
It may sound rather strange, but I'm going to go down to Chicago on Friday to have a one-day training program for Mike Rohde.
Oh, wow.
So then you'll see my work.
Well, we
Good.
expect a report.
Yes, you'll have to give another speech, an update on that. Thank you, Stacy.
Oh, yeah.
For getting all your
Have any
awards.
feedback, so I'll take them right now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, and Joe. I'd like to introduce our second speaker, Ms. Deanna Constance. She will be speaking to us from the Advanced Communicator Series, Speaking to Inform. The title of her speech is Overcome Your Fear. She would like 5 to 7 minutes. Welcome, Deanna.
Have you ever been so afraid of failing at something that you decided not to try it at all? Do you have a dream you would like to pursue, but are afraid of failing before you even get started? I have a quote at my workstation as a reminder to follow my dream. It is, "What would you attempt if you knew you could not fail?" Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, today I would like to share some suggestions on how to overcome fear of failure. I will review with you 3 points in moving beyond fear and toward success in achieving your dreams without being too loquacious. The first, accept that failure will happen. Understand and expect that at times you will fail. We fear the unknown. We need to adjust our view of failure when we tend to think that failure is a bad thing, but that's simply not true. As an example, Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first job as a TV anchor in Baltimore, but she didn't quit. Today, Her television show and network ventures have her business worth over $2.9 billion. Thomas Edison said, "I failed my way to success." Thomas Edison's teachers told him he was too stupid to learn. Yet, today he has over 1,000 patents on record, and he is the inventor of some of our most creative technologies of our time: the phonograph, the movie camera, and the electric lamp. He didn't fail, he learned his lessons and became a success. Number 2, never stop pursuing your goals. Your fear should never erase your goals. As real as fear is, your goals are just as real. Thomas Seuss Geisel had his book rejected by his publishers 27 times. Dr. Seuss, as we know him, went on to sell over 600 million copies of his books. You may recognize them as the Cat in the Hat. There's so many of them, I can't even think of all. Once you've accepted that failure will happen, have a plan for getting back up. I personally have experienced failure in seeking new job opportunities. Even when a job opportunity and interview seem to be completely meant to be, I have known the rejection of being passed up for other candidates. I did not let that stop me from pursuing my goals. If anything, it has made me reevaluate my strengths and learn from the important skills in the interview process that I need to go forward. My plan for getting back up is to learn from every interview and keep pursuing those positions. Just keep in mind that the minute you start doing something audacious again, those fears will come back. But by this time, you've learned the lesson that your fears aren't worth being afraid of. And the third step, believe in yourself. Rather than giving up when things don't work out, take it as an opportunity to build perseverance and resolve. Colonel Sanders was fired from dozens of jobs, and his famous recipe rejected multiple times as he tried to open his own restaurant. He went across the country, tired and rejected and broke, but he believed in himself and his famous chicken recipe. Today, Kentucky Fried Chicken has over 18,000 locations across the world. Believe that you've got what it takes to work through the obstacles and difficult times. Remind yourself how many people's failures became successes because they wouldn't give up. I have shown how by accepting that failure will happen, to never stop pursuing your goals, and by believing in yourself, you can overcome your fears. Every single person experiences fear. You are not alone. Successful people deal with their fears and do not shrink back, they go forward. I will leave you with a quote from a young, strong heroine, Pakistani Malala Yousafzai, who stood up to the Taliban, was shot in the head, but they could not smother her voice. She says, "I say I am stronger than my fear." Believe in yourself. So I ask you, what would you attempt if you knew you could not fail?
Thank you, Deanna. 1 minute for comment. Through the storytelling manual. Today's project is the moral of the story. She would like 5 to 7 minutes, and the title of the talk is Sammy the Squirrel.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guest, Toastmaster, I'm sure we've met before. I'd like to share with you today a story about a squirrel, Sammy the squirrel. Sammy the squirrel was a brown squirrel, and he lived at the edge of the woods in a grassy green meadow. And Sammy was a well-regarded squirrel in his community. He had a nice brown bushy tail, He had good, strong teeth and nice, firm paws. He did a lot, not only for himself, but for the community. He was very busy. He played hard. He worked hard. As I said, he was well regarded in his community. Sammy was one of the first squirrels to hear that first nut fall and know that harvest season had arrived. He'd hear it, he'd alert the community, and then he'd go out and gather his nuts, and he'd search for the best nuts that he could find, and he'd take them off into his meadow and plant them. Put them in little caches of 4 or 5 nuts, acorns, walnuts, and he placed these little 4 to 5 nut caches about 5 to 6 feet apart. He was very meticulous in his process. He wanted the best acorns, the ones that would keep until he needed to come back and resurface them and eat them to keep his belly and the community sustained. So Sammy would go through the harvest season and he'd create his little caches out in the green meadow, 4 to 6 feet apart. And at the end of the season, he always ran into the same problem. He'd go back to that cache, and of the 4 or 5 nuts he'd stashed there, for sure, 2 to 3 of them would have sprouted. And when they sprout, they're not any good for a squirrel. It's like eating a pecan pie made of salt instead of sugar. It's awful. So he considered half of his harvest gone to waste, sprouting nuts. The next season arrived, the nut would drop, Sammy alerts the community, gathers his nuts, same thing, sprouting nuts. He would try lots of different techniques. Maybe it's my efficiency, maybe I'm not putting them deep enough. The next year, maybe I put them too deep. Maybe I should cover them with leaves instead of grass. Lots of different techniques to try to improve efficiency, sustainability. Maybe he wasn't picking the best nuts. Maybe he needed to go for some that were a little drier. Even though he'd alert the community, maybe he'd wait a week before he went out and then buried them. And this happened year after year, sprouting nuts. Finally, he's at his wit's end. Sammy doesn't know what to do, so he decides to seek advice from the elder squirrel in the community, the old gray squirrel. So he goes and he talks to the old gray squirrel, who says, "You're not really doing anything wrong, but I want you to add one more step to your process. Next year, when harvest time arrives, go out, go right away, harvest all your nuts. Make sure you get 4 or 5 nuts in a cache. Make sure you place them 5 to 6 feet apart. Keep all that the same, not too deep, not too shallow. The next thing you need to do, the step you're missing, when you're done, you've gathered your last nut for the season, what I want you to do is climb to the tallest tree at the end of that meadow. Stay up there at the top of the tree, sun up, sun down. When you come down from that tree, you will see what has changed." Sammy thought, okay, I don't know, I've tried everything else, it sounds a little crazy, but it's worth a shot. So, that season, the nut falls, Sammy gathers his nuts, and he does just like he always does, 5 to 6 feet apart, 4 to 5 nuts in a cache. And he takes the old squirrel's advice, climbs to the top of the very tallest tree, sun up, sun down. During the course of that day, he stayed up there, and he looked around, and he observed, and he thought. And while he was up there, he noticed something. At the edge of the meadow, where he puts his cache of acorns and walnuts, he sees seedlings, little trees, just poking up over the top of the grassy meadow. And he can see where he put his nuts from the last year's cache. And there's a little bit stronger, taller trees. And the year before, and the year before, and the year before. Actually, the end of the forest or the woods was growing out into the meadow. That's exactly where he was putting all of his nuts. They were going to seed. By the time Sammy came down from that tree, he realized what changed. It wasn't that his nuts were not going to go to seed anymore. What he realized was that it was a different perspective. He was not just gathering and feeding and sharing nuts for this season. He was planting trees. His seedlings were trees that would create nuts and would share and feed his belly and the community's belly for many years to come.
The change that occurred was in perspective. The change that occurred was in Sammy the squirrel. The lesson, the moral of the story, I find myself many times down in the details. I go through my life taking care of my kids, I buy groceries, I make dinner, and when something doesn't go right, you know, the trials and tribulations of your days, it's usually when I'm looking down at my nuts. That sounds bad. But I'm looking down at the details, and I'm not taking the time to climb up to the tall tree and look out over the meadow and see the things that I've been feeding